The city skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Victor Langston's penthouse office, a sterile monument to his empire. At 52, Victor was a titan. Langston Enterprises dominated tech and real estate, his name synonymous with ruthless ambition. But behind the tailored suits and cold charisma, a void gnawed at him. Doctors had confirmed it years ago. He was infertile. No heir to carry his legacy, no family to soften the edges of his isolated existence. Adoption felt hollow. He wanted a child of his blood, a dream science couldn't grant. Across town, in a cramped apartment littered with unpaid bills, Mia Carter stared at her laptop screen, her college portal flashing a tuition overdue notice. At 21, she was a junior at New York University, scraping by on scholarships and part-time barista shifts. Her dreams of becoming a journalist felt like a cruel joke when survival demanded every ounce of her energy. Her older brother Derek lounged on the couch, flicking through his phone, oblivious to the eviction notice taped to the door. Derek was a leech, demanding money for his business ventures, which were little more than gambling debts and shady deals. Last week, he'd smashed her laptop in a rage when she refused to hand over her meager savings. "You owe me, Mia," he'd snarled. "Family sticks together." Mia's desperation led her to a shadowy corner of the internet, a discreet agency promising life-changing opportunities for young women. The ad was vague but alluring, financial security in exchange for a deeply personal commitment. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the apply button. But Derek's voice echoed from the living room, demanding rent money she didn't have. She clicked. The agency arranged a meeting at a sleek Manhattan hotel. Mia arrived, clutching her worn backpack, feeling out of place among the marble and chandeliers. Victor Langston sat across from her in a private suite, his presence commanding yet oddly vulnerable. The agency had vetted her. Healthy, intelligent, no criminal record. Victor's proposition was blunt. "I need a child," he said, his voice low, eyes scanning her like a contract. "My condition makes it impossible naturally, but medical advancements, surrogacy with a donor embryo, my chosen genetic material, can make it happen. You'd carry the child. In return, I'll pay your tuition, clear your debts, and give you $200,000 to start fresh. No strings after the birth." Mia's stomach churned. The money would free her from Derek, fund her degree, and give her a future. But this? Carrying a stranger's child? She thought of her brother's threats, the eviction notice, the dream of a life beyond survival. "Why me?" she asked. Victor leaned back, his gaze softening. "You're resilient. You're fighting for something. I respect that." She signed the contract that night, her hand trembling. The agency ensured anonymity, but Victor insisted on regular updates, a clause that made Mia uneasy. She didn't want to know him, didn't want to feel anything for the child she'd give up. The procedure was clinical, the embryo implanted in a sterile room. Mia tried to focus on the future, her degree, a job at a newsroom, a life without Derek's shadow. But as weeks turned to months, her body changed, and so did her world. Victor's updates became meetings, first at the agency, then at quiet cafes. He asked about her health, her studies, her life. His questions were measured, but his eyes betrayed a hunger for connection, not just control. Mia resisted, keeping her answers curt. He was a means to an end, nothing more. Derek, however, grew suspicious. He'd found the agency's paperwork in her bag and cornered her one night, his breath reeking of cheap whiskey. "You're selling babies now? How much you getting?" He grabbed her arm, bruising her skin. "You're gonna share, Mia, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a whore you are." Terrified, Mia confided in Victor during their next meeting. She hadn't meant to. His calm demeanor just pulled it out of her. Victor's jaw tightened as she described Derek's cruelty. "He won't touch you again," he said, his tone final. Mia didn't ask what he meant, but a week later, Derek vanished. A note arrived with $10,000 and a scrawled message. "I'm out. Don't look for me." She didn't know if Victor had paid him off or something darker, but relief washed over her. For the first time, she felt safe. As her pregnancy progressed, Mia's walls began to crack. Victor's meetings weren't just check-ins anymore. He brought her books on journalism, asked about her dreams, shared stories of his own climb from nothing. He wasn't the cold tycoon she'd expected. He was lonely, haunted by a childhood of neglect, driven to build an empire to prove his worth. "I want my child to have what I didn't," he told her one evening over tea. "A parent who sees them." Mia felt the baby kick, a reminder of the life tying them together. She began to wonder about the child, not Victor's biologically, but his in every other way. Would they have his sharp eyes, her stubborn streak? She pushed the thoughts away. This wasn't her child. It was a job. But Victor's kindness blurred the lines. He paid off her tuition in full, rented her a better apartment, even attended a prenatal appointment when she had no one else. "You don't have to do this," she said, embarrassed by her reliance on him. "I want to," he replied simply. The birth came early, a stormy night in April. Mia labored alone, Victor pacing the hospital waiting room. He'd insisted on being there. When the nurse placed the baby girl in Mia's arms, something broke inside her. The child was perfect, with tiny fists and a soft cry. Mia's heart ached as she handed her to the nurse, knowing Victor would take her soon, but Victor didn't rush in. He stood at the door, watching Mia with the baby, his expression unreadable. "What's her name?" he asked. Mia hadn't expected the question. I thought you'd choose." He stepped closer, looking at the child, then at Mia. "You carried her. You should name her." Tears stung Mia's eyes. "Lily," she whispered, thinking of her mother's favorite flower. Victor nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "Lily Langston. It's perfect." The contract was complete, the money transferred. Mia could start over. New apartment, no Derek, her degree within reach. But as she packed to leave the hospital, Victor appeared with an offer she hadn't expected. "Stay in her life," he said. "Not as her mother, if you don't want that, but as someone who matters. I don't want her growing up like I did, with no one." Mia froze. She'd planned to walk away. Mia froze. She'd planned to walk away, to bury this chapter, but the thought of Lily, of Victor's quiet vulnerability, tugged at her. She wasn't ready to be a mother, but she couldn't abandon them entirely. "I'll visit," she said finally. "But I need time." Victor nodded, relief in his eyes. "Take all the time you need." Mia returned to college, her future brighter but her heart heavier. She visited Lily on weekends, watching her grow in Victor's sprawling penthouse, now softened with toys and warmth. Victor never pushed, never asked for more than she could give. But over time, Mia realized she wasn't just visiting Lily. She was building something with Victor, a partnership, not of contracts, but of trust. Years later, as Mia graduated and took her first journalism job, she looked at Lily, now a bright toddler, and Victor, no longer the untouchable tycoon, but a father who loved fiercely. She'd come for the money, stayed for the child, and found something neither had expected. A family, forged not by blood, but by choice. Mia froze. She'd planned to walk away, to bury this chapter, but the thought of Lily, of Victor's quiet vulnerability, tugged at her. She wasn't ready to be a mother, but she couldn't abandon them entirely. "I'll visit," she said finally. "But I need time." Victor nodded, relief in his eyes. "Take all the time you need." Mia returned to college, her future brighter but her heart heavier. She visited Lily on weekends, watching her grow in Victor's sprawling penthouse, now softened with toys and warmth. Victor never pushed, never asked for more than she could give. But over time, Mia realized she wasn't just visiting Lily. She was building something with Victor, a partnership, not of contracts, but of trust. Years later, as Mia graduated and took her first journalism job, she looked at Lily, now a bright toddler, and Victor, no longer the untouchable tycoon, but a father who loved fiercely. She'd come for the money, stayed for the child, and found something neither had expected. A family, forged not by blood, but by choice.